Businesses operating in the country could be losing an estimated minimum of 1 trillion naira annually to intellectual property theft and counterfeiters through well-orchestrated forms of infringements, not only in Nigeria but also across Africa. Recently here in Lagos, a thought-sharing ideas pollinating session was organized for a cross-section of business owners, business executives, marketing professionals, brand custodians, and the brand marketing and technology media community. And there to offer some invaluable experience was Okupe of Mark Secure Africa, a pioneer brand protection and anti-counterfeiting company. According to him, there is a dearth of information and data in Nigeria, a situation that has made it difficult to ascertain the accurate figure of Nigeria's loss to intellectual property infringement. For more on this, we're now being joined here by him. It's good to have you with us, sir.
Good afternoon.
All right. So recently you caused a stir when you stated that government, including businesses in Nigeria, is losing 1 trillion naira annually to intellectual property theft. So, and also brand counterfeiters. Can you tell us more about this?
Yeah, that estimate is actually very conservative. When you look at a situation where almost every category of products are affected by this scourge that we're talking about, if you look around you, you'll find almost every brand that has some traction, that has been accepted in the market, that has significant market share and high consumption being counterfeited, from pharmaceuticals to soaps, to electronics, to spare parts, to books, textbooks. When a textbook becomes very popular as a choice textbook for some course or some subject, even in secondary schools, the textbooks are pirated. And if you look at the movie industry, the music industry, and a lot of things going on there, it's quite a huge amount of money. Now, unfortunately, we've not been able to create the kind of infrastructure that captures the data appropriately. And a lot of brand owners themselves have not been able to track the actual losses that they incur from these activities. So my statement of it being about 1 trillion naira is really, really very conservative, because that's focusing more on FMCGs and most of the products and brands that we all relate with on a daily basis.
What's interesting about that revelation is that you said the government loses 1 trillion. Am I right? When I say that, am I misinterpreting?
Well, no. It's a cumulative thing.
Okay, cumulative.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But an article which I found very interesting, written by Ken Nwogbo back in 2019, he says here that majority of Nigerians are being crushed under the merciless weight of poverty because the same government whose job it is to protect the intellectual property of its citizenry is usurping other people's ideas, using same and not giving credit to the originators of the ideas. So when the government is also part of the problem, where do we really start from when it comes to solutions?
I think it's an awareness thing. And very, very honestly, if you look at the way we do things here, there's usually no adherence to best practices in most of the things that we do. And you'll be shocked that some of the officials that are culpable in this instance that you've mentioned actually don't even have an understanding of that situation. Sometimes people are not even aware that they're infringing, on somebody else's intellectual property, because there's not been quite enough awareness to actually pinpoint what that infringement, is about. So sometimes, government or no government, these crimes occur. Even though sometimes criminals in some situations are not aware that they're actually committing a crime. But ignorance of the law is no excuse. It's no excuse.
Indeed, so in such scenario, how is this affecting the economy? How do we mitigate this?
It's one step at a time. How does it affect the economy? If you look at the global brands in terms of value, you will discover that of the top 10 global brands in terms of value globally, about 6 of them are American brands. Now, when brands that are wealth creators flourish as they ought to in an environment, government benefits directly from that, because those businesses pay taxes, to government, and the brands are in themselves equity builders even for nations. I'm sure that we all have attachment to associations to some brands, being Japanese brand, being British brand. When you talk of wines, there are some countries that are associated with good wines. When you talk of automobile, there are countries that are associated with automobiles. And whether we like it or not, these perceptions rub off, in patronage. So if the government does not track this scope that we're talking about, ultimately they get robbed off. A lot of businesses are losing out. Some may even shut down as a result of these things. What benefit does government derive from a business that has started well, shutting down because counterfeiters? Many brands are afraid to come to this part of the world because they are aware that this problem exists, and that even when the problem exists, there is no recourse. The laws that we have are not deterrent enough, to keep people away, from this thing. So by the time you put all these cumulatively together, the government obviously is losing.
That's the part that actually is so worrisome, that these laws are not being implemented when it comes to intellectual property. So let's say I was robbed of my intellectual property and I want to seek redress in court. We all know that to a large extent the judiciary has also been compromised. So the government on one hand is also fueling the intellectual property robbery, and the judiciary is compromised. So what's the way forward? Because honestly, it's...
even in some situations, apart from the judiciary process being sometimes long drawn, there are cases that have been in court for years, and the crime is still going on, the losses are still being incurred. Now, when judgment is granted in a lot of these situations, the punishment that the law provides, for somebody who's been involved in this act that we're talking about, is sometimes so insignificant that the culprit may just wait, for the judgment to be. If I've infringed on your brand and I've been taken to court, and the case has taken 3 years, and all that I have to pay as a fine is 200,000 naira, at the end of even if judgment is granted, in favor of the aggrieved party, I may just wait for. So there's a need for government to look at the laws, that guide this, activity, and to make the punishments, enough deterrent, for those that want to get involved in it to keep away from it. But brand owners have a responsibility to their customers, to themselves, to ensure that they protect their brand.
All right, talking about specifics, who are the likely counterfeiters here, you think?
What do you mean, the likely counterfeiters?
Those who are, those who are involved in it, as it were.
Anybody that wants to profit from another man's sweat through the unauthorized production, of that man's intellectual property, be it a product, be it a brand, be it whatever it is an infringer. Now, infringement goes beyond counterfeiting, as a matter of fact. Counterfeiting is just one of the most popular ones. For example, the adulteration. A product can be adulterated. It's still an infringement. I take a bottle of a very, very strong beverage, that is well accepted, that has high consumption, and I go mix it up with some other substances or liquid to make 20 bottles out of that one bottle, and I now sell it as the authentic product. There are tamperings, there are product tamperings that people engage in. When a company or an entity has what you call a franchise or a right to market a brand within the country, and then other people travel abroad and bring in, that same brand to sell in this market, that's technically called parallel import. It robs the person who has invested in a franchise to sell that product in this country. It robs him of his income. So infringement there are very many levels of infringement, but like I said, the most visible one that a lot of us, speak about is counterfeiting, but it's a lot more than that.
Of course, I applaud your recommendations that the law should be more stringent. Is that the word I should be using right now? Stronger.
Or punitive.
More punitive, thank you. But in the meantime, how can African businesses build stronger brands that might not be easily subject to intellectual property robbery?
Well, technology is making things a little bit easier. Unfortunately also, in the brand building annal, many African businesses are not doing fantastically well. Because brand building is a long haul. One of my favorite definitions of a brand is that it's an asset that you invest in over time. Coca-Cola, for example, I think Guinness is about 263 years old as we speak now. I'm sure we're all aware of the 1759 story.
Yes.
You know, that was when Guinness was actually founded. Coca-Cola itself is about 130 years old as we speak now. And then those 130 years have been years of consistent marketing effort, consistent marketing research, consistent product, improvement in terms of packaging and all of that, consistent communication, consistency over a period of time. So Coke just didn't become what it is, overnight. The problem with a lot of African businesses is the tenacity to have that long haul understanding that a brand doesn't get built overnight. Now, when you've built the brand, when you spend those amounts of resources that we're talking about to build a brand, you have to intentionally protect it. Now, like I said initially, technology has made things a little bit easier because there are now product protection features that technology can help you, to use to protect your brands. But these features are not applicable across board. In the pharmaceutical industry, there's a lot that's happening there. And there's a bit of attention there because those are things that you ingest, and that can cause a lot of havoc, including death, fatal outcomes. So there's a bit of focus on those. But a lot of other segments have been affected. I mean, accidents that happen in Nigeria, quite a number of those accidents are as a result of fake spare parts. That are used.
I was going to ask you the fact that you talked about the efficiency of technology, but technology itself can be a problem for the branding process as well. This era of fake news and things you can easily manipulate and what have you. So what do you make of that scenario?
Well, with a bit of research and keeping an eye, on your brand, you will be able to identify where the problems are, where the pattern of occurrences happen, on a regular and consistent basis. And that's where you should start, your effort from. From our own professional perspective, even when there's a suspected infringement, the first step that you take is to investigate the reality of that suspicion. Once we're able to investigate and we are able to confirm that, well, this brand actually is being infringed, these are the sources where the infringements are coming from, these are the hotspots where these activities have been noticed, over time, then the client will take a decision to enforce the rights, that they have. So you have situations where, facilities are shut down, outlets are shut down. There's an increase in the sale of counterfeits online now, and there's also a technology, there are also technological infrastructure that you can use to trace those, and to shut them down. The important thing is to be intentional, about wanting to protect your brand. Because
but that doesn't ordinarily translate to deterrence in the first place.
Well, it may, and I'll tell you how. If we have three brands, we have Arise Juice for whatever it's worth, and we have another juice, and then because the Arise Juice has become such, a cool brand that everybody, is desiring to have. Yeah. Once you begin to protect Arise Juice, and those that want to infringe on it know that the brand is protected, we make their activities on Arise Juice unprofitable and problematic. They will move away from Arise Juice to another juice. Because they already know that once you touch Arise Juice, it's going to be a problem for you. So they move away to the one that is less protected. So ultimately, when you protect your brands and you enforce the value that you've put in them, counterfeiters and infringers soon get to know that when you get into infringing on this brand, it's going to be a lot of trouble for you. So, because most of them just want to make quick money. Okay. So once it now becomes a problem that, You know, the quick money that you want to make is now becoming a big loss to you. You know, the products that you've created are being destroyed, you know, and you are losing money. They quickly move away from it to one that is less productive. So it adds up at the end of the day.
Just real quick, the Mark Secure Africa, of course, we understand it's a pioneer brand protection and anti-counterfeiting company.
Yes.
Since it's the pioneer, first of its kind, tell us what are some of the challenges that you have faced, because you're going against people who are profiting immensely from intellectual property theft. So what are the challenges that you faced or you anticipate facing?
And determined as well.
Yeah, we started in 2011 as BrandScan, and we became Mark Secure Africa in 2013. Now, you may want to ask, if you've been in this business for this long, how come you are not that visible or conspicuous? It's one of the challenges. It's a very high-risk business. We've been involved in activities where there have been threats to my life. People have given me, you know, threat phone calls. And sometimes we're driving, you can see that maybe there's this vehicle that appears to be trailing you, and you just want to be sure that, you know, nothing funny, you know, is about to happen. The other challenge that we face is that even with the law enforcement and some of the gatekeepers that are supposed to mitigate this act, some of them are not just even aware of the consequences of what is happening. So they just believe that, well, these people are making their own product, you know, they just want to bring it in. It doesn't matter. The customs, for example, if we know that we have a Dettol brand in Nigeria that is being manufactured in Nigeria, and Dettol officially has made it clear that these products are manufactured in Nigeria, once any Dettol brand is being brought in and imported, it should be a red flag that, hey, you know, something funny is happening here, because, you know, we're not supposed to be importing what is being manufactured locally. Now, the import could be fake outright. It could be parallel import, as in it's for another market that is being brought in here. You know, but that should raise a red flag. But how aware are they, you know, of these things? You know, the awareness gap is very, very wide. So sometimes they don't even know, you know, that they're doing the country a lot of disservice by allowing those things, you know, to come in. And therefore, clients also, a lot of clients do not have a consciousness that, you know, this infringement can really, really be harmful to them. Some of them are also afraid not to want to face it because there's a communication part in infringement. And many clients are like, oh, if we begin to let consumers or the consumer public know that our brand is being infringed upon and they are counterfeit, it may become a disincentive, you know, for consumption. But all these things are being managed, and like it is with every new venture or every new idea, it takes time before people get to understand, get to work together, you know, in cooperation with us to deal with this problem, because it affects all of us.
Indeed, it does, and hopefully we'll hope you make headway in that venture. Mr. Joko Okupe, I would like to thank you for joining us on the show.
Thank you very much for having me.